Welcome once again to the internet. Live from the Marriott Library at the University of Utah, this is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts,
Kyle Holland and
Alex Fielder. Today, on a very special occasion, that is our 10th episode, We've got something fun planned out. Today we'll be exploring the strange and mysterious world of Gadgetbahns.
Ooh.
From PRTs to the Las Vegas Loop, we're talking about the weirdest transit solutions after the news.
After a nearly 2-month-long closure due to Russia's ongoing war of aggression against Ukraine, the Kyiv Metro has finally resumed full service. Slava Ukraini. Cue the theme music, please.
Red Line train to Daybrook.
So, what is a Gadgetbahn?
Well, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, a Gadgetbahn is no dictionary entries found for Gadgetbahn. I'm so sorry. But no, really, a Gadgetbahn is a transit, quote, solution, unquote, that proposes to fix costly and complicated transport issues with a cheap and magical techno fix.
So, snake oil for transit.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
It's like when the person comes up to you at the MLN convention and is like, "Hun, have some lavender oil. It'll cure your cancer, but train."
Except since when were any of these Gadgetbahn solutions actually trains?
Occasionally.
Occasionally.
Occasionally they are sort of almost trains. Most of the time they are like trying to be like trains, but not trains.
Because train bad.
Good. Well, I mean, for them, yes,
for them,
train bad. Train bad, car good. But for us, train good, car bad. So, you know, it's a whole vibe. Gadgetbahn is a portmanteau, which is like a ad hoc combination, I guess, of the English word gadget and the German word for railway, bahn. So,
in that case, Autobahn is car railway?
Car railway, yes.
See,
car railway. I love that.
Yeah.
It's like this one, I saw this on Twitter a while back. This one guy was like, I have been to 2 separate tech conferences where people have come together to try and reinvent the future of urban transportation, and every single time they've invented either a bus or a train.
we're just making up solutions for problems that
That
already
we've
solved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically
So,
what Gadgetbahns
we're
are.
wasting our time,
Yes.
but it's fun.
Well, and you know, sometimes it's a little more malicious than wasting time, like the hyperloop, for example, although not like, you know, explicitly a transit thing, is kind of a clear distraction against us actually building high-speed rail. And now for the good stuff. First of all, the greatest and wildest of all Gadgetbahns, the car hole. Now, my good citizen, you may ask, "Good sir, what is a car hole?" And the answer is a hole with a tunnel and a Tesla.
So, a whole car's going.
Invented by none other than Elon Musk.
Ah, yes, the genius person who is a genius.
And is smart.
And is smart.
For doing things.
And funny.
And more importantly, has a lot of money and nothing better to do with it.
Yes. So, Elon Musk's loop, obviously better known by transit people as the car hole, is the brilliant and never before thought of, big dig, idea to use cars in tunnels to relieve traffic.
So originally the idea was you had sleds for the cars that would run through the tunnels.
At very high speeds.
Yeah, so functionally a rail system, but you can just drive your car on instead of like getting out of your car.
Ooh.
Scary.
Scary other people.
But yeah, turns out that costs money. And
Weird.
so it's been downgraded to cars with guide wheels, which we've seen in some sort of rapid transit systems before. It turns out that still costs money, so it's been downgraded to just a straight up tunnel with a Tesla in it.
Well, Well, and you see, originally it was a self-driving Tesla in a tunnel, but the new ones you actually have to drive in the tunnel.
What?
Yeah, the original variations of the Las Vegas loop you actually have to have a driver for.
Okay, how is this even feasible without self-driving? Those tunnels are so tiny.
There was a traffic jam. There are often traffic jams.
I remember that video. That was funny.
Yes. Car hole actually very stupid. And this is for multiple reasons. So what the Boring Company has done, and this is a fair, good contribution of theirs to like society in general, is they have reduced the cost of tunnel boring, which is good.
Which is great. And it's not just a blanket. They made it super cheap. Magic. They have made cuts. They're not making the same size or caliber of tunnels that current contractors make, but they've made legitimate technical progress.
Yes, and that is obviously very important, and we should pay attention to that. But the claimed low cost of these tunnels, it's for a reason. For example, there is no ventilation. There are no escape routes.
The tunnels are so small you can't open your car door.
That is correct.
So your car sets on fire, you want to get out, you can't open your door, and if you do open your door or somehow get out, you still can't get out?
That is correct, which
Yes.
Leads this thing to be what I would personally describe as a death trap.
So we're digging mass graves, pretty much.
Yeah.
This thing is like the potential to be a mass grave, yes.
Yeah, and to your point, well, lithium-ion battery fires, especially in modern EVs, are incredibly rare in terms of like vehicle miles driven.
Sure.
They can happen, and under normal safety standards, we would never allow something like this with no escape route to be built.
Like there's a reason that American subways cost so much, and that's because we've gone like so hard on safety regulations, it's absurd.
That's good, though.
I mean,
that's what we want.
It's good up to a certain point, but like, yeah, you gotta have some safety.
Yeah, like there's a reason every building you've ever been in has a robust fire escape system and will not trap you in.
So, car hole actually slow. Also should mention like 35 miles an hour is I believe the speed of it.
Yeah,
So,
because with that type of clearances, you just can't go that fast without it being dangerous.
right.
Unless you're on rails.
So that's so weird.
I know, that's funny.
Is this new?
We've invented the solution to urban transit.
Like
A metro.
Also, should be noted, it has just pathetic throughput. Like, it can, theoretically, this should be noted, do 1,500 people per direction per hour.
which is trash. We're kind of talking comparable to just a regular above-ground traffic lane.
Yeah. Wait a second.
So yeah.
Wait, but it also gets traffic jams?
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's useless?
Yes.
So this car hole concept is functionally just a lane of traffic
Underground.
which makes it more dangerous and more expensive.
And still susceptible to induced demand, which is great.
Yeah. It does not solve any new problems in any novel ways. It's just another lane.
But you're wrong.
Oh?
Because the geniuses in the city of Las Vegas, who are having a nice time, have decided that this is the perfect transit solution for their entire city. So, because of the quote and unquote success of the Vegas Convention Center loop, which is, like a mile long, so cool, they have decided to build a loop for the entire city of Las Vegas.
Wait, so this is actually going to be built?
29 miles of tunnel.
When is this expected by?
This is not yet known, but the Vegas loop, as it is called, will include the LVCC loop and any future service extensions, including those to casinos along the Strip, Harry Reid International Airport, Allegiant Stadium, downtown Las Vegas, and eventually to Los Angeles.
Well,
Wait, I just read that last part for the first time. They're going to take it to LA from Vegas?
I'm sorry,
could you
what?
imagine? Could you imagine a traffic jam? And you can't escape because you can't open your door, and you
Wait,
can't leave a tunnel.
They'd want to tunnel to LA.
Yeah, apparently.
Why
I
not
don't
put
know
it
what the
above
deal is
ground?
with that.
But that's okay. Let's think about this real quick. So the only the only two ways to get in or out of the tunnel is separated by hundreds of miles. So there would also be no oxygen in the tunnel.
Everyone's just gonna die.
They would have to add some sort of
they'll add like
ventilation.
one fan in the middle.
And hopefully regulators would force them to add some safety systems.
They're not gonna get.
Wait. So
Okay, this is a serious plan for transit in Las Vegas right now. But it's just gonna only connect casinos to each other. So this is like the ultimate like casino tourism trap thing.
Well, literally tourism trap because you can't leave it.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
So one thing I just want clarified: it's only EVs down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's not even the original concept, which is you can take your EV down there and go wherever you want. It's like a fixed transit service that's only going to use Teslas.
Wait. So,
do you bring your own Tesla?
No.
That makes sense
There's
because
going
there'd
to
be nowhere to park
It's
them.
basically like a people mover. It's a fixed transit service using only Teslas that only goes to casinos.
Wait, but someone has to drive the Teslas?
As of now, I'm sure they'll figure out the automation.
They made a train
Without the rails.
and less capacity.
They made a really
less
shitty
safe
subway.
This is like the worst subway you could even conceive of.
Well, and here's the thing. The only reason why it's getting built is because the Boring Company is footing the bill. Like, the entire bill for this 29-mile car subway.
Oh, boy. Well, normally, like, if you build something like that, you would at least be like, oh, but if we get bombed, it's safe.
This is not a good place to hide from bombs.
I don't see any benefit besides them paying for it.
Well, you can't put train underground. You have to put car underground.
Which came first? The car, pretty much?
No, trains
I know,
came
I'm
first,
kidding, I'm
actually.
kidding.
Like, trains are really old at this point. It's established technology. So, yes, the Las Vegas Loop is the most raging dumpster fire of a Gadgetbahn in the United States. And I think we're probably going to be doing an episode on the loop itself in the near future, because there's a whole lot of history to this whole thing and how it got developed that is just wild. But yes, biggest American Gadgetbahn right now is underground car subway.
Car hole.
Car hole. Yes, car hole.
It reminds me of how Seattle just built their monorail just for fun.
That's so convenient because the next Gadgetbahn on our list is monorails.
What an unplanned transition.
What an
that was.
unplanned transition. Wow, we are so good at podcasting.
Great. Monorails, if you took the concept of a train and took away some of the things that make them cheap and convenient.
So a monorail is a railway in which the track consists of a single rail or beam. So instead of two rails, you're just going to do one because reasons.
Aren't these usually rubber tired too?
Sometimes.
Okay.
There is basically no, like, single standard of monorail construction, unlike rail, which has 4 feet, 8.5 inches. But yes, monorails, there are all sorts of them. I mean, there's some that are actually in use for, like, real transit service. Like, for example, Tokyo's Air Rail Link is a monorail, which is actually pretty good. It runs express service and local service and is useful. Sao Paulo Metro's Line 15 is going to be a monorail. It's a really important circumferential line. But then there's other ones, like, for example, the Seattle Center monorail.
So, Connor, is the problem with monorails more of a technological problem or the fact that many of them are built just because they look cool and not because they're a real transit solution?
There's not anything necessarily wrong with a monorail. Like, you can theoretically run, like, a high-quality metro service on a monorail, but most of them are built in such a way that that's not really gonna happen. So you get, like, the investment of, like, a fully grade-separated elevated metro line and the service of tourist thing.
Gotcha. So that's not great for anyone.
So, Alex, why don't you talk, as the only person here who's ever been to Seattle, about the Seattle monorail?
So I personally did not ride it, but
Because it's a waste of time.
Well, and money.
Yeah.
When you could just walk. But it looks cool. I actually have some footage I took of the monorail.
Oh,
I will
put it in
the
here,
video.
and you can look at this. It's really ancient at this point, and it's
It was built for the World's Fair, wasn't
like
it?
a long time ago.
The
Like, when was it? It was built in
1962.
62.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
old.
I mean, to be fair, it was cheap. It was like 4.2 million, which is probably like $4 trillion today or something. But, you know,
do you want to actually calculate that?
yeah, calculate that.
Well,
We're going to do math.
I don't know. I would ride it if I had money to burn, but then you could just ride the link, and
Well-
the link is just amazing.
Oh, that's only 45 million in today's money.
And you see, the funny thing about the Seattle monorail, though, is that it almost became like a thing. And by a thing, I mean like there were ballot initiatives and big community pushes to turn it into like a citywide, region-wide metro system
Wow.
of monorail.
All right.
And that didn't happen, and now they have Link instead, which like, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, to the cost point earlier, 4.2 million in 1962 is 40 million today.
Okay, so that's entirely reasonable for
Yeah.
elevate. That's really cheap, actually.
Yeah, how long is it?
It is 1 mile, basically.
$40 million for a mile of
To
elevated
be fair,
monorail.
double-tracked.
Well, so good job, Seattle. That's pretty darn cheap for elevated.
Yeah.
And I'll add
Still
all
runs
of my
terrible
footage
service.
and pictures.
And isn't useful.
Make your transit useful.
Make your transit useful. Yeah, okay. Now, my favorite gadget bahn is next, and it is PRT, or Personal Rapid Transit. Now, what, you may ask, is a PRT? Well, the answer is cars, but with tracks and stations.
And these cars can hold anywhere from like 46 people on a small PRT system.
To 24 is the highest capacity PRT.
Nice.
The trouble with PRT is it costs as much as metros to build, which is expensive.
They can't like reduce costs because the vehicles are small
You
and
can't
light.
reduce costs. It's mostly proprietary technologies when it gets built. Oh, and there's only ever one like actual PRT system that's been built, and that is in Morgantown, Virginia, or West Virginia.
And they actually pulled it off.
Well, you see, the thing about the Morgantown PRT is that in general, PRT is just a stupid idea. Like, why would you build a PRT when you could just build an elevated metro line instead?
See, it seems like an improvement over the car tunnel, though.
It is definitely better than the car hole.
Yeah.
Yes. But in general, PRT is bad because it has very low capacity for invested cost. It's not necessarily actually like as cheap as everyone wants it to be, because like the original idea was instead of highways, we're going to build PRT to the suburbs. And just no.
Yeah, it could be good if it was cheap, but it's not because it's technologically basically the same as an actual rail system.
It's also like the same geometry hates cars argument, is that you need a lot of vehicles and you can only fit so many vehicles into an urban space before it becomes a problem. So,
Long train.
PRT, not actually that good. But there is one place, and this is a system that I am endlessly fascinated with, called the Morgantown PRT, which has pulled it off and gets a daily ridership of 16,000 people.
In a town of how many?
30,000, metro area of 140.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yes. So the story of the Morgantown PRT actually pretty simple. So Morgantown, like most towns in West Virginia, is situated along this really narrow river valley, and it also has this really big university in it. So whenever the students would come to town, there would be gridlocked traffic 24/7, especially since the university has 2 different campuses in town.
Because students gotta get where students gotta get.
Right, and so since at the time there had just been this big report from the U.S. government thinking that PRT was the future, here you go. The university was like, hey, let's build a PRT to connect our campus and the city. And so they did that. And it cost like today's equivalent of the Link Light Rail system costs. So not bad. But, you probably could have done cheaper with like a tram or something. But, whatever. It's automated. But yeah, so it's really cool actually. And I just because it's such good transit. It's fully grade separated. It can run super high frequency and carry a reasonable amount of people for such a small town. And it gets really good fare box recovery ratio, 60%. And it's so bizarre that this exists in a town of 30,000 people. And it just shows what America could be, is just little baby metros everywhere.
So, how the government wanted to fund light rail in the early 2000s and BRT now, they wanted
to try
pay
a
for
PRT,
this
yeah.
in the 70s.
Yeah, and like in the 60s, they wanted to pay for metros. So the government goes through phases of what it wants to buy. And in 1975, it bought a fully grade separated, basically like ultralight metro system for Morgantown, West Virginia.
From Boeing, of all companies.
Yes, from Boeing.
From technology developed by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah, this is like
this is smart. This is smart people came up with this.
And,
Yeah.
The weird thing about it, though, is that, like, it's had mostly incredible reliability, like 98% for most of its lifetime.
Kind of makes sense. It was built by aerospace engineers.
Yeah, though, to be fair, aerospace engineers have a pretty mixed track record when it comes to transit vehicles. If you're interested in that, look at the Boeing LRV. Yes, Boeing did make a light rail vehicle. But it's so weird. It's in full operational service. It's getting upgrades. There's extensions that are in the works. Like,
Brilliant.
it's just one of those things that just perfectly fits its use case and would never work anywhere else. Also, stations are built on sidings, so every train can be an express train if you want it to be. Or every
Nice.
vehicle. Like, I'm just flabbergasted that Morgantown Personal Rapid Transit exists when my hometown doesn't have a single bus route. And it's 100,000 people. The only thing in Morgantown, West Virginia, is West Virginia University and the Morgantown PRT.
Yeah?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, just shout out to Morgantown and West Virginia University for not doing what Duke did in tearing out your people mover. Keep it. It's precious. It's cool. It's the only good PRT.
It's also kind of important to avoid completely wrecking their entire road system.
Oh, yeah, completely. Like, they had, like, New York City-style gridlock all the time before the PRT, because just they have this, like, such a narrow corridor and every road has to go straight through downtown. So it was just completely congested all the time. PRT comes.
And I assume everything's only grown since.
Yeah, it's gotten bigger since then, yeah. And it's growing. There's new developments, which is, like, why the extensions are being talked about.
Makes sense.
So they can go to the new developments with it, and
Love
it can
it.
become, like, a whole city thing instead of mostly a university thing.
See, this is what you need to do when you make new developments. Plan in transit access.
Yeah, look at the video of it going. It's just so wholesome.
See, it looks like a race car track, kind
It
of.
does look a little bit like
Yeah,
a racer.
because it isn't on rails. This is a wheeled guideway.
I imagine
And you
it's
see
like,
here it goes into the downtown of Morgantown, which is so cool that you just have like a direct link for your students straight into like historic downtown Morgantown.
Yeah, and it's all elevated, so it's fast and doesn't interfere with pedestrian or car traffic.
And it's really cool. And I mean, it's probably the only use case where PRT will ever make sense and has ever made sense. But yeah, it's cool. So we have next.
Before you get to that, please support us on Patreon so we can afford a trip to Morgantown to see if this is bumpy or not.
Yes. We will go to Morgantown and we will pay 50 cents to ride the Morgantown PRT. Is there an Amtrak? Is there Amtrak to Morgantown?
I'm looking at it
This
now.
is our
I don't
summer.
know.
If so, this is our summer trip. Subscribe on Patreon. Follow on YouTube. Eat Spotify so we can go to Morgantown and ride the PRT.
Yeah.
Although it is closed in the summer.
What?
Yeah, there are a few downfalls I should know.
Okay,
with the system.
wait.
What's our transit
It's
system
closed
that's
during
in
the summer because the students are the thing that create the problematic traffic, and it mostly serves the university except one station. So, fair. Second, it doesn't run very late. It closes at like 6 o'clock at night because students apparently don't go places after 6 o'clock at night.
It's like Utah where everything closes at 8.
Yeah, but like, if you bought like a few more vehicles and just run 24-hour 365 service, it could be really great and awesome.
Yeah, hopefully if they do the extensions, they do something like that.
Because there's no reason not to, since it's automated fully and you don't have operating costs that are that high. It's pretty neat. Other than those things, obviously. I forgot to mention those because I'm so infatuated with it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So next, another classic Gadgetbahn that actually is okay is the Wuppertal Schwebebahn.
You want to try that again?
Wuppertal Schwebebahn, which is the original dangle train. Built in the year 1901 in Wuppertal, Germany. It is a 8.3 mile dangling monorail that basically serves as the metro, rapid transit system for the city of Wuppertal. And what's so interesting about Wuppertal and Morgantown and where their use cases for these weird technologies intersect is that they're both in narrow valleys along rivers. But what's so unique about the Wuppertal Schwebebahn, or the Wuppertal Dangle Train if you're a normal American like me, is that it goes over the river.
Brilliant.
Like it's built over the river because that was the easiest corridor to build rapid transit over.
I love that.
What's even crazier about it is that it gets 82,000 riders a day.
How many riders?
82,000.
On how long of a system?
8 miles.
So this follows the river the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
It's a neat little guy, and I can't really say anything else about it other than it's just suspended metro. It's pretty cool, and it's really old. It was built in 1901.
1901.
Yeah.
That is a long time ago.
Yeah, this is definitely a Gadgetbahn, but
Well, it would be if it was built somewhere where it's not appropriate.
well, it has one use case, like the Morgantown PRT.
Yeah.
And it's found its use case to be
Good.
over a river in Wuppertal, Germany.
Yeah, but it's not like the Seattle monorail where it just
Doesn't go anywhere.
stops.
Yeah. It's a Gadgetbahn, but it's also not. Okay, now for our final, well, actually not our final, never mind.
Our penultimate.
Not even. So, for our next example of Gadgetbahnery, we have the Miami Metromover. The Miami Metromover is a free mass transit automated people mover train on rubber tires operated by Miami-Dade Transit. Now you may ask, wait a second, doesn't Miami have a metro? Yes, it does.
In theory.
The Miami Metrorail, which is marginally okay. This is not that. It is an elevated circulator of weird little people mover vehicles on wheels and rails through downtown Miami. And it is free also.
Ridership isn't bad. The system length is 4.4 miles, and in 2016 it got 33,000 passengers a weekday.
Certainly. It's a really weird little system because it's got 3 different lines that go different places in downtown and connect to the Metrorail. I don't know that much about it, but it's weird, and it's a Gadgetbahn.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, our next Gadgetbahn is probably the dumbest one in my opinion, and it is called the Transit Elevated Bus.
Is this the cute little Metromover thing?
Mm-mm. So, what the Transit Elevated Bus is a train.
A conceptual train.
Yes, a conceptual train. On rails, in mixed traffic, except it has a hole in the bottom of it so that cars can drive through.
What?
Okay, look at this picture, and you will understand the weirdness.
What?
So imagine if you were walking through the forest and you see a fox or something, and instead of walking around it, or let's say you could go underground, you just straddle it.
You straddle the cars. So instead of going underground or creating a dedicated lane, clearly a pack of geniuses in China has invented this solution where instead the bus, or the train, I guess, because it goes on steel rails, will go over the cars on the road.
I like this Wikipedia quote. In July 2017, 32 people involved into the project were detained by Chinese authorities on suspicion of investment fraud.
Yes, so this is very much... And you see, this was first invented in 1969 by, of course, Americans. And because we're stupid.
Oil go burr.
Oil go burr. But yeah, it's the strangest thing I have ever seen in my life because it's a huge train. It covers 2 lanes of traffic and it's 150 feet long or something, and has a capacity, according to the people who invented it, of 1,000 people. But instead of giving it a dedicated lane or making a subway, they're going to put rails in between lanes of the road, and it will run over them.
If it covers 2 lanes of traffic and there's room for 1 lane of cars under it...
2 lanes of cars under it.
I'm still imagining that you could just use the same amount of space to have a separated railway.
Probably, but, it's cool, and if you want to, you can drive under it and accidentally turn to the side and smash yourself into it.
See,
Sounds fun.
The thing I like looking at this picture is it looks like they probably made it work in the model. but there's no turns.
Right.
It's like they didn't figure that out yet.
Right, there's no turns. Like, how are you going to do intersections with this is, like, one of my big questions. Also, look at this pedestrian walkway and tell me this person is not going to get absolutely blasted by the thing.
Oh.
Like, imagine being in the middle of this and this just goes over you. Like, this is not pedestrian friendly. This is pure Gadgetbahn.
See, I don't see how this could, like, load people
Well,
effectively.
you would put stations, elevated stations in the middle of the road, like you would with a metro, except this one has Airbus, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, but then if you're just building platforms above,
Okay.
why don't you... Well, okay, I'm not going to try and justify this, because
No.
it's pointless.
It's pointless. But here's the thing. It almost happened. So in 2010, 115 miles of track were set for construction in Beijing.
Some pilot test, that is.
Yeah. This is
wait,
this is just what...
did I-
115 miles.
I heard you, right?
Yeah, this is just what China does is they just build out massive transit systems immediately. So it almost happened. And then everyone was like, wait, this is stupid. We could just build a subway line. And it didn't happen.
So, did they build a subway line instead?
Dozens. But there was a prototype made. It was a thing. And then it was not.
And then they got arrested.
And then they got arrested for investment fraud.
What a story.
So we have made it through all of the Gadgetbahns except one, which is the automated people car thing, shuttle.
Did you save the best for last?
Arguably, yes. So, you know how whenever anyone talks about building a new transit line, especially a rail transit line, the libertarians come to the rescue with the suggestion that, well, we shouldn't build that because autonomous ride-hailing is the system of the future.
Sure it is. With technology that doesn't exist yet and is objectively inferior to trains.
And doesn't solve most of the problems of cars. Yes. But, so this is that, except bad, horrendously slow, and extremely expensive, and it needs a conductor on board.
Wait, so is this a bus then?
Kind of, because it's small. So this is a thing that lots of cities are doing pilots of right now, is these little baby, like, autonomous car pod things that just sort of creep around the city slowly instead of a bus. It's like microtransit, but worse. So there's this TOD project in Salt Lake City, in Salt Lake County, called The Point, which is going to connect to a BRT line which will not be able to adequately service it. But that's besides the point, because their genius idea for how to build a circulator for this big mixed-use walkable neighborhood is autonomous pod car things.
So,
Yeah.
this is the neighborhood being built on top of the old prison?
That is correct.
And they're just having a bus?
It's an autonomous pod car thing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And there's going to be a BRT with a capacity of 600 people per hour to the Frontrunner station.
And this is supposed to be, like, the role model neighborhood of the valley.
That is correct. And we're going to have a whole episode on this someday. But, like, basically, it's the essence of Gadgetbahn. It is solving a problem that does not exist. Because first and last mile transit, fun fact, bikes, feet,
Scooters.
scooter,
What?
for people with disabilities, paratransit.
Oh yeah, let's go hate on some little autonomous
Let's
pod
look
car
at
things.
autonomous pod car things that people have been doing. So this is sort of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
It's like holds maybe 4 people.
Yeah, but
and
you
usually a
see, you
booth
can replace
configuration.
bus with it, as you see from this.
Sure, because these things definitely aren't very experimental and running at like 5 to 10 miles
Well,
an
you
hour.
see, London has trialed them, and you can see it going very fast.
Oh, they added motion blur.
They did add motion blur. Oh, you see, look at that. It's a minivan.
Wait, so there's no point then?
There is no
all?
point to these things. If I'm not mistaken, UTA actually,
Don't tell me we put money in this.
I believe we did.
Oh boy.
Let me see. I gotta look this up now. This is the thing I'm talking about. So it's called Easy Mile, and it's meant to be like a first and last mile transit solution.
My feet are a first and last mile transit
That's
solution.
funny. No, because people can't walk. And UTA
UTA?
did a trial of it.
What?
For a very short period of time. I don't remember where. I gotta figure out this thing now.
What year was
Right.
this?
The automated shuttle pilot. So this is a thing that lots of agencies are doing right now because they're all really into microtransit, which is our next episode, coincidentally.
Oh boy. Micro
but-
not transit.
Yeah,
15-month pilot?
They did a 15-month pilot. It operates up to 15 miles an hour, is all electric. It follows a predetermined route but reacts to other vehicles, pedestrians, and other objects in real time. A shuttle host is always on board to turn the vehicle on and off and to monitor operations in case, it does what software does a lot of times and completely loses its crap.
Wait, so the automated shuttle carried over...
It carried 6,000 people.
Over 15
15
months.
What's that daily ridership? Look that up because that's going to be real pitiful. So it was at the Dixie Convention Center in St. George, the Mountain America Expo Center, the Canyons Village, the University of Utah, Station Park, the Utah State Capitol, and the 1950 West Business Park. And this is like a thing.
Connor, are you ready?
Yes.
15 people a day.
Wait.
Yeah.
15 riders a day.
Yep. So
15. I could do better than that with a rental van.
it's basically just microtransit, but automated, slower, and worse. It's one of the dumbest things ever. And it's happening all over the country. People are trialing this technology because microtransit is the future because people can't possibly walk a half mile or a quarter mile or an eighth of a mile to the bus and or train and or...
And also, we can't possibly have enough quantity and quality of bus and rail service such that the walking distance is only half a mile to a mile.
That's right. So, yeah, that's the most irritating Gadgetbahn other than the car hole, of course. And, yeah, that's Gadgetbahn. So there are many Gadgetbahns.
So, Connor, what is the motivation for stuff like this little microtransit people mover cute thing? Because any transit enthusiast or transit professional could tell you that it is an obviously dumb idea and has proven itself to be non-functional.
Yes, well, the idea behind Gadgetbahns is mostly progress for its own sake. And this is why Gadgetbahns are so, commonly discussed in America. You go to Germany, besides the Wuppertal Dangle train, there aren't very many monorails, and where they are, they make sense. Whereas in America, we just talk about building random slapshod weird Gadgetbahns everywhere, and then none of it ever gets built because we have this mentality about transit that there must be innovation. We must have the newest thing or nobody's going to ride it.
But we figured that out 100 years ago.
But we figured out the solutions 100 years ago, and they really haven't changed since.
No.
They don't need to change.
I mean, you can automate your metro, but, it's still a rapid transit railway. So, Gadgetbahns are essentially just weird. And stop, please. Build train instead. Elon Musk, make the boring company so that we can afford to build subways in this company. You will make so much money. You can even abandon your Tesla thing. You can still pay for your spaceships. Just build us subways instead.
How nice would that be?
Yeah, if we had a super ultra billionaire who wanted to build transit.
Well, not even just that, but Musk's boring company, if they were up to the safety standards and stuff, they could just bid on government contracts for subway tunneling work.
Right, and they can, legitimately, they have made some real advances in tunneling technology. For example, you no longer have to build giant open pits to put TBMs in like you normally do.
What do they do now?
You know the cartoons where the drilling machine
Wait,
goes
they can do that?
Yeah, the boring company can do that.
Wait.
Brilliant.
So it saves time, it saves money, and they've also built a series of standardized TBMs. So if we could do this for transit projects...
But we just want to spend
on
our
a car
money
hole.
on car holes.
All right, so conclusions. Abandon microtransit. Instead, build your cities so that they can be walked in safely
And we will be
comfortably.
talking about this next episode. Microtransit is our next topic.
And
Sounds
have
good.
rickshaws.
Elon Musk, please just use your technology for rail systems that
Elon
actually
Musk,
work.
You are so close to figuring this out. You're talking about putting 12 people pods in these things instead of cars because you recognize that the car thing isn't going to have good throughput. Just put a train in it. It is so
close.
easy. Have you been to New York, Elon Musk, or have you ridden the subway in L.A.? You live in L.A., Elon Musk. Please build a subway instead. Please, please, please stop with your car hole nonsense. I understand you own a car company.
And a whole company.
And a whole company. But that doesn't mean you have to make a car hole. There's a place for both EVs and good public transit in the future. Please, God, just build a subway, Elon Musk. Yes, also, other Gadgetbahn things. PRT, good in Morgantown, bad other places.
PRT and the dangle train we talked about, those are both very unique transit solutions for very unique situations. Don't go around building transit because it looks cool.
Although, honestly, you probably could have built a dangle train in Morgantown if you wanted to.
That would have been cool.
Like, it has that same river flowing through the middle of it. You could, and it connects to the university like that.
You could have.
I'm officially stating my support for the Morgantown dangle train, but
Quality. But
Yes.
don't build transit just because it looks cool.
Seattle.
Yeah, build transit because it's a functioning good infrastructure project.
Also Seattle.
Yeah, also, Link Light Rail. The light rail, or I'm going to say light metro because that's what it is. The Link Light Metro system is going to be one of the most impressive transit systems in this country when it's finished.
And is invested in by big companies.
Yeah.
That recognize that's a good thing.
That, like, oh, hey, we can't just keep doing cars.
Good job, Seattle.
Yeah, Gadgetbahns, weird, fun, mostly useless, also sometimes really, really stupid, ahem, car hole. So, any other things that anyone wants to say?
Go build trains.
Build a darn train. It's not hard.
If you're tunneling, make it useful.
4 feet, 8.5 inches, greatest distance ever made. Also, like, this is another... Okay, we're going into Patreon territory now. So, we'll continue. Thank you for listening to the Red Line Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. Visit our website. And give us money on Patreon so we can go to Morgantown and ride the PRT.
Thank you all, and tune in next time for microtransit.
Indeed.
And
Okay.
why we should burn it.
And why we should burn microtransit.
Yeah.
It's actually the worst thing ever, but we'll get into that.